Welcome back, friends. Now that we have visualized the role of the add quant list, let us get ahead and write some program to firstly populate this list and also to display it in a way that the user can then interact with it. So let's get back to our Python program that we have been writing. Remember, we had a variable called discount wanted, and that variable we were using that to indicate whether the user wants a discount or not. So in our program as it stands right now, if the user wants a discount, then the user must enter a capital Y. Otherwise, user can enter something else. So really, this entire concept of add quant becomes relevant only when the user wants a discount. However, since this is a list that we have to create, so first thing I'm going to do here is that I'm going to just say add quant is equal to two square brackets. Now remember, by doing this, I'm creating a list, although it's completely empty, which means it doesn't have any items, but the list has been created. And what that means is that I can now address this list. I can, in fact, append items into this. In other words, I can add more and more items to this. Like I said, this entire concept becomes relevant only if the user has opted for a discount. So what I want to do is that I want to now store in this list the additional number of units that the user can purchase to reach to the next 500, as we saw in the video where we visualize this whole list. So what I can do is that I can just say add quant dot append, and what do I append? I can say gap 500 by price, for example 0. So this should be a floor division, so gap 500 floor division price 0 plus 1. But before we, start running this code, let's just see this a little bit more carefully. Remember, the idea here is that by doing this, I'm figuring out how many more milkshake my user will have to purchase in order to reach to the next 500. Now, in our program here, gap 500 is say whatever 440.06, but the point is it's a floating point number. The price is also, so if I look at price 0, which is the price of the milkshake, it is also a floating point number, which means that if I were to do gap, say gap underscore 500 floor division, say price 0, then I'm going to get 4.0, because remember, if either of the two inputs were a floating point number, I get also a floating point number. And now when I do 4.0 plus 1, I'm going to get a 5.0. Now there's nothing wrong in this, but in my program, I have kept all the quantities always as integers, which means that I'm going to change this also to an integer by doing an int operation on the entire, mm, let's say, this this part of the code. So it's going to convert this to an integer. It's going to basically find out in integers how many more units can I purchase. And just briefly on this particular thing, notice this is no different from what we had done to, for example, even get to the next 500. Basically the same idea, that if I can spend, say I have another 440 rupees to spend and my unit price is 99, how many could I purchase? So if I were to do, let's say, gap price, say gap 500, gap 500 divided by, let's say, price 0, then I would have got 4.4, which means that I really need to purchase 5 units so that I can go over this, because there's no like half unit of a milkshake or something like that. So what I can do is that instead of doing this, I can do gap 500 floor division and plus 1. So that's the logic we have used, and you get a 5.0, convert that integer, and you are good. Now this is for the milkshake. Remember, this list price really contains for all the items, so I can go and do, let's say, add, next I can add to this, say, for ice cream, I think, which is second item. Next I can go and add the same thing for, let's say, the third item, which is chocolate. But you can clearly see that there's a pattern emerging here. We are just repeating the same statement again and again. However, this index is changing. What I'm trying to get at is that we are creating a perfect use scenario for a for loop. And why is that? Because we are repeating, as well as there's this variable whose value is changing. So what I can do is that I can just write this more concisely. I can say for kk in range, let's say length of menu. Of course, I must give a colon over here. Oops, I must give a colon over here. And then I must indent this, and I don't need this anymore. So I'm going to remove this. But importantly, I'm going to make this into a price, say price KK plus one. So now what's going to happen is that my ad quant list will get populated through this. So let's just see this working once. Let's say I ran this. So I say user tells me, I get the option choose 1 to 5. So I say 1, so I say 3 units, I say 5, let's say 12 units, and then I say 6, let's say. So my grand total was 923, which is already close to 1000. But I do want to take this offer, so I can basically buy, let's say, I've got user opted for a discount. Remember, I'm not yet printing that thing, which we are going to do next. Let's say I were to look at ad quant, right? So if I look at, say, ad quant, that list, it is giving me 11132, and that's because user has to purchase either 1 unit of milkshake or 1 unit of chocolate or ice cream or chocolate, 3 units of, I think, eclairs, and finally 2 units of cupcake, because depending on the pricing, in order for me to reach this 1000. And that's perfect, exactly what I wanted, and that's all happening because of you know um, this ad quant statement. But now populating this ad count is fine. However, this is not sufficient because my user needs to now interact with it. So we need to tell the user, hey, look, you have got all these options available to yourself. So what I'm going to do is that along with populating, I'm also going to display this list in a nice way. So I'm going to say print, let's say, once the user wants a discount, I can say, you say you have the following options. And what are the options available to me? Well, I must display these in a way that the user can interact, like I said. So I can use the same idea that I had done earlier in the very beginning to display the menu items. So what I can do is that I can basically write a very similar statement here, and I'll say print, string to say KK plus one, because I want this to be displayed as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Next, I can say, let's say, sorry, comma, then I can say add, so maybe I can give a small gap here, add, and then here we should say menu KK, because that menu item and the additional quantity that I can, say add quant, again I must say KK, and then over here I can go and say units. So let's see this working, because then it becomes clear. But basically, simple print statement that we are writing. So we are telling user, hey, you have the following options. It will be like KK will go from 0 onwards. So this will be 1, add menu KK, which is 0, milkshakes 1, add milkshake, say certain number of quantities, and so on and so forth. Let's just see this for ourselves. So if I do this, let's say I want, I just say, okay, 1, and say I say 4 units, I say 2, I say 1 unit, let's say, and I say checkout. So now my grand total is 520.95. If I can purchase for 1000, I'm going to get 10% discount. So I want to take this offer. I say yes, and now notice it tells me, you can, you have the following options. You can add 1, you can add a milkshake, 5 units. 2, you can add an ice cream, 4 units. 3, you can add chocolate, 6 units. Add eclairs, 13 units. Add cupcake, 10 units. Now this numbers will basically come from the list add quant, and they are the additional units I must now choose to purchase. I can basically indicate one of the preferences that I want. Now here I want to highlight to you one point, that notice there's a little bit of a gap created here. So you can solve it in many ways, but one method which I thought is quite interesting as well is that I can put a backslash b over here, right? Which means that before the before this dot, if I put a backslash b, that's another basically a nice method to solve it as well. So if I, let's say, I say the same thing, so 3, say 7, and then I say 6. So I purchased for 829.1 grand total. If I purchase for 1000, I'll get a discount. So I say yes. And notice here, now it looks pretty cool. 1, add milkshake, 2 units, add ice cream, 2 units, add chocolate, 2 units, add eclairs, 5 units, add cupcake, 4 units, and so on. And all we have to really do is that we have to just ask user to indicate their preference, and we'll do that in the next part. Take care. Thank you so much. Bye bye.